And I am joined with one of my favorite guests, easily to say so, Margaret Kimberley. Margaret Kimberley is host of Black Agenda Report. I'm sorry. Yeah. Margaret Kimberley is senior columnist and editor at Black Agenda Report and author of Presidential, Black America, and U.S. Presidents, and the Presidents. How are you doing today? You doing all right?
I'm doing okay. Thanks. It's great to be here.
Excellent. Your volume is a little bit high. My audience is going to complain to me. They were complaining this morning about my volume.
Okay. I'll do my best.
Oh, you're fantastic. No, perfect.
Oh, okay.
You sound much better. So thank you for joining me for this. I think you were with me and pretty much everybody else around the world. There was a picture of like Xi Jinping, Putin, Ayatollah, all of these people just kind of watching Elon Musk and Trump punch each other in the face. It's just the funniest thing in the world. Two oligarchs with short tempers and big egos, being very petty with each other online. And there's the other story with AOC, where I consider just outright humiliation. I don't know if you remember in the very beginning when AOC first got into politics. If you look at some of the stuff she used to say about Israel and Gaza, she used to be very hardcore on that issue. It's like, oh, Israel is doing this, Israel is doing that. The people of Gaza needs to be liberated, all this stuff. Fast forward, and you get AOC saying stuff like this now. And keep in mind, she's saying this on a Muslim holiday as Israel decides to do one of the most Naziest things in the world, that out of the blue, Hezbollah hasn't done anything. You haven't heard a peep from Hezbollah. And they have decided to just bomb the hell out of Lebanon on a holiday. Listen to what she's here saying on her TikTok channel. And I want to get your take on it.
I would say that the United States, our responsibility is to the stability and the security of the region. That means being able to support, yes, Israel in its defensive capacities, right? In its ability, in that context. I would say that the United States.
Well, that's what the United States says it's doing, supporting Israel in its defensive capacities. And according to Netanyahu, everything he does is defensive. When he murders a baby, that baby could have been a Hamas member. When he blows up an apartment, there was a dog catcher that worked for Hamas that was in an apartment, so it justified killing 90 people in order to do so. From their point of view, all of this stuff is defense. In fact, our department is the Department of Defense, right?
It's not. Yes, it is. No. So the original name was the right one.
Yeah, right. The original was more honest.
It was.
Give me a take on that. That is an arc. That is a hell of an arc over these few years.
Well, it's actually no. As soon as she was elected to Congress, do you remember on her campaign website, she had an anti-war message and then it disappeared as soon as she won? Do you remember that?
I don't remember that, but I don't doubt it at this point, especially with stuff like this.
So this tracks. This is consistent. She also began to change her stance on Israel shortly after she was elected.
Yes, she
so
did.
she has. So this is consistent for her. Listen, you cannot be in politics if you're ambitious, which she is. There is talk that she might challenge Schumer in the Democratic primary next time he runs for Senate.
Yeah.
So if you are an ambitious politician in New York State, you have to follow the Zionist party line. You will not get money, and someone who opposes you will get money, so they'll take you out. And so I'm not surprised. I'm not at all surprised. She's not this big leftist that she marketed herself as being. She has not been. Do you remember when Nancy Pelosi was still speaker? All these memories are coming back for me.
Mambo Bear.
And there was a vote about the Iron Dome and the U.S. Is it the Iron Dome?
Yes.
And you could see the video. Nancy Pelosi walks up on her and talks to her. You can see it. And then she backs down and doesn't vote for it. So, she's like the rest of them. She can be pressured. Who knows with these people, what they really believe. But as a politician with ambition. She is not going to stray very far from the Zionist line on this topic.
Yeah, she got her mind right. There's do you remember what is it? Nat Buchanan. What is it? What is it called? It used to be this long running show. I can't think of the name of it. You know it if I could say it. It'll come to me in a moment. But they have a new woman on there now. It's a very attractive white woman who's on there now who runs it as opposed to the guy who used to run it before. AOC was brought on the show. And they said, AOC made a statement. And she said, well, the occupied territories of Israel, like Gaza and West Bank. And the woman said, so you said occupied territories. And AOC froze. You could see her mind like, oh, wait, I did say that. And she literally spends like 4 or 5 seconds trying to get her mind right to figure out, okay, how do I respond to this because I've offended somebody? It is the weirdest thing in the world. The response should say, yes, occupied territories, and occupied even by UN measurements and everything else. She couldn't do it. Even back then, she couldn't do it. And this was like when she first got into politics. So you're absolutely right. And to make your point even clearer, this is James Carville. Listen to his complaining. James Carville complaints here dovetails with what AOC is doing in that statement, meaning that statement is not random. What AOC is saying is dovetailing exactly what James Carville is complaining about right here.
I tell you who this exposes in a more profound way. And I hear this all the time. I mean, you go to try to raise money from like really wealthy Jewish fundraisers. And it said, look, James, I Democrat, but I can't be a part of party because of what happened at Columbia. Well, what the fuck did the Democrats have to do with what happened at Columbia, by the way? Mm-hmm. All right. But you because they have some students at Columbia fucking, generally made an ass of themselves.
He feels some kind of way. He's like, how can we raise money with these goddamn students who are fighting against a genocide? How dare those students show their moral integrity? What James Carville maybe not remember is that students are always the bulwark against these wars, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's the genocidal, but it often is at those universities. What was it, Kansas University, where they shot those kids?
Kent State, you mean?
Thank you. That's what it is, Kent State. Well, they murdered those kids, and there's an iconic picture of the woman screaming with her hand like over a dead body. They're always the bulwark for that stuff. And there's one other part that I want to get your take on. If that is true, meaning if that's true, and it is also true that Kamala Harris lost, 8 million votes because of the Democratic support for the genocide in Gaza, then why do you continue to support the genocide? Meaning, if you're getting hit from both sides, where you're getting hit by your own party saying, why are you supporting a genocide? The majority of the country is against it. Why are you continuously backing this? And the Jewish lobby that you want to get money from is like, yeah, you're not obedient enough, so we don't want to give you money. Okay, then maybe we need to register you for FARA. Maybe we need to start considering you a foreign agency, which I don't know why they haven't done. I do know why, but they should have done up to this point already. Meaning, maybe you should change your tenor. Well, we have at least one political party that is not obsequious to foreign government. Give me a take on that, because that seems to be the most rational thing in the world to do.
Well, Carville, in his own crazy way, said something, told us how this works. That they, first of all, they depend on rich people. They depend on rich people for money. And I think he said rich Jewish people, so I'm quoting him. And they are clear that they want this movement to be crushed. So no, James Carville has nothing to do with students having an encampment at Columbia or anywhere else. But they're letting him know, we expect you and your friends to crush this movement. You will not get a dime from us unless not only do you have to vote right, but you have to make sure that everybody else shuts up about it. So he said something very important about how politics works. He said something very important about this particular constituency. They will brook no opposition. Not only no opposition, but you better help them oppose. So you may say, so Carville's saying, what do we have to do with some kids protesting? And they're saying, figure it out. Stop it. We want you to be clear. The Democratic Party is with Israel, and you better do what you need to do to end this, or we're out.
Yes.
So his words were that, this crazy rant was in fact important.
No, I agree with you. It's just funny to me. Like James Carville has a tendency to say the quiet part out loud. And he's like,
Yes.
man, we need money from this Jewish lobby, and these Colombian students are making it hard for us. And it's like, what the fuck do we have to do with Colombia? Well, I think the issue is that many students tend to vote Democrat. At least they used to. And
well, it's not just the students. Excuse me. It's not just the students. It's the school itself. For example, there's a mayor's race in New York City. The Democratic primary is in a couple of weeks, and Israel is an issue in a Democratic primary for mayor. Now,
yes.
I want to know what the mayor is going to do about how the transit runs. I want to know if the garbage is going to be picked up. I want to know if the things I want to support are going to be supported. I want to know what the mayor is going to do for housing. I want to know all kinds of things. But Israel is an issue. The candidate who's surging ahead, Zoran Mamdani, it looks like he could win the Democratic primary, and everyone's asking him, does Israel have a right to exist? What does that have to do with running New York City? But it has everything. James Carville told us it has everything to do with New York City. Not only can Mamdani not raise money, but they may stay out. They may give their money to somebody else. So it was actually, I can't stand James Carville, but I was very happy that he said what he said. He told us how this really works.
That is amazing, though. Like, when you think that is amazing, because to me, it's like, okay, you've defined the problem in your mind of what you think a problem is. Okay, fair enough. How do you deal with the problem? How do you mitigate that issue? Like, it's the thing about big money politics too, right? It's like, okay, if they're outraising you, then why don't you try to get rid of the money so you can even and level the playing field? I feel the same way about AIPAC. You have all of these like groups that are effectively ideologically attached to Israel, even more so than the US. That's their issue, that nothing else matters. That's their issue. And so it's like, okay, well, that's acting like a foreign agent. And if indeed they're a foreign agent, you should treat them like a foreign agent, especially if you're losing elections because of your support for a maniac government. And that maniac government, the thing that you were effectively using to win elections beforehand, is no longer giving you money. Get rid of them as a political entity in your country. It's just that. Like they use the foreign agent thing against Russia. They use the foreign agent against China. And yet Israel dumps in, or let's say groups affiliated with Israel dumps, $100 million into our elections, get rid of two political figures because of the money that they dump in. And they're like, we don't see an issue here. We don't see an issue. That's astonishing. And yet that's the way it's operating.
AIPAC itself, yes, should be registered as a foreign agent because it's doing the business of the nation of Israel. It is. As far as the money that AIPAC and individuals give, people can direct their money any way they want. We need publicly financed campaigns. That's the first thing. So that no lobby can have this control over our lives. So we have big pharma deciding who is in Congress and isn't. We have the banks deciding who is in Congress and who isn't. I mean, there's a plethora of lobbies who decide not only who's going to win, who gets to run at all.
Yep.
So, this notion when people talk about democracy, I'm like, what democracy? You don't have any democracy. People with money are deciding who you get to vote for at all.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. Well, this puts me in mind of Klitschko. So in Ukraine, Klitschko recently was complaining, the former boxer, he was complaining, he was like, it seems like Zelensky is usurping democracy. And you listen to that statement is astonishing. They literally overthrew the government in 2014. They got rid of opposition media. They got rid of opposition candidates. They did all of that stuff. They put political people in prison who was running against or wanted to run against Zelensky, or was a political force against Zelensky. Zelensky was sent to the UK because he was going to be political opposition. They were threatening him with charges. You have other people who fled the country because they were going to get murdered. One of the political figures in Spain got murdered, and they smeared the guy after they murdered the guy. My point is, in his mind, we have a democracy because in his mind, he's fish in water. We've gotten rid of everybody else. There would be opposition, and the only people we care about is who's left. And among the people of who's left, this is what we consider to be our democratic space. And I'm saying the US is the exact same way in the way they talk about it. We have a capitalistic system. Our democracy is infused with a capitalistic system. And so the people of means, the people who have money, are the ones that dump money into this capitalistic democratic process. In their minds, fish and water. We're the ones that contribute. It's a capitalistic system. The people with money are the ones with the means, are the ones who get to make the elections. So they don't see it that way. So if you look at something like Princeton and it says 1%, like less than 1% of what the public wants is effectuated in the political space, right, or 90% of the people with the most money or donate the most money is the candidate that wins, meaning 90% of the time, the candidate who wins gets the most money. Right. That's not a democracy. Like, I don't know how they even...
It isn't. It's it's interesting, that statistic you pointed out, that we get all worked up about. Well, we are worked up about elections because it keeps us distracted, and it keeps us from understanding how things work. And we're told, you got to vote, you got to vote. And I'm not telling people not to vote, but if the decision has been made before you get to vote, if decisions determine who you get to vote for, you don't have a democracy. If what you want is not enacted, whether Democrats or Republicans are in office, then you don't have a democracy. It's very simple. We don't. And I find it interesting, the more undemocratic the country becomes, the more this word is used. I mean, like all the time. And it's like, what's the expression? The lady doth protest too much. So
too much.
Right. They know you don't have, that's why they keep saying it. So, and we're told the only thing you can do, and then they rig the system and decide who you can vote for. So no, we don't have a democracy. And this, the Israel lobby is just one example of how that works.
I love that saying. We don't think the lady protests too much. In fact, actually, there's a few sayings. Tyranny of distance. That's another one. Or the primal scream of a dying regime. Steve Bannon. Like that. These sayings are just, God, I love these sayings. I love the way that language makes the stuff or says the stuff. Let's get to the throwdown. Elon Musk and Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is sitting in the Oval Office. First, Elon Musk comes out, attacks the big, beautiful bill. And it's like, man, I did like $100 billion in savings by firing all of these poor people who worked at Social Security and Medicare and all of these government organizations. And they're going to put $20 trillion on the debt. This big, beautiful bill sucks. Trump comes out. It's unfortunate that Elon Musk is saying that. He's just mad that, I took his tax credits away and blah, blah, blah. Trump even points out, which I think Trump is lying. If you ask me, habitual liars lie. It's just kind of, it kind of writes itself. He says, I'm very disappointed with Elon. I helped him a lot. He knew the inner workings of the bill better than anybody sitting here. He has no problem with it, or had no problem with it. All of a sudden, he has a problem. And he only developed the problem when he found out we're going to cut the EV mandate. Elon Musk says, false. This bill was never shown to me, even once. It was passed in the dead of night so fast almost no one in Congress could read it. By the way, that's true. They also pass.
It's true. That is how bills are passed. Yeah.
Marjorie Taylor Greene even pointed out, I didn't read the bill. I didn't know this provision was in the bill. It's like, how do you even admit to that? It's like, how do you admit that I am signing a law or signing something that is most likely to go into law, and I have no idea what is in the law?
That's another example of the non-democracy that we have, that the system, that things are rushed through by staff who are talking to lobbyists and other people. So she was referring to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think she was referring to AI. And yes. This bill prevents states from regulating AI. So the tech people talk to the staff, talk to the members, get it put in the bill. The members, they're being pressured to just go along. Not that they have to be pressured too much because they know how the system works. And then this becomes a news story that all of a sudden, I didn't know this was in the bill. And maybe she really didn't know, but is she really going to oppose the oligarchy, the tech oligarchy? Are they going to allow it? No. So there's a little performance going on. And she claims, I didn't know. And other people will say they didn't know. When the issue is how our system runs. It could be the Israel lobby. It could be big tech. It could be any number of interest groups who decide what we do and don't get. We live under billionaire rule.
Yeah.
I mean, we live under billionaire rule. We don't have much of a say in how things work.
Yeah, it's astonishing. It's this theory of government. And this stuff, it doesn't work in practice. It just doesn't.
I know.
Here is another one. I like some of these tweets are just fascinating. All of this was taking place in real time. Tesla gets decimated, by the way. The Tesla stock was just taken down and down and down. Apparently, Elon Musk lost like $20 billion in revenue from just this fight alone. So here's another.
Is it from the fight, or is it from the fact that the EVF rules are being taken out? The tax credit is being taken out.
I think it's a little bit of both, because it seems like it got worse as the fight progressed, because as they were throwing barbs. And then Trump was like, when Trump said this, Musk was like, okay, then fair enough. Maybe I will stop ferrying your astronauts back and forth. Trump came out, he said the easiest way to save money in the budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon Musk's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months that I was going to do. And he just went crazy. He just lost it. He just flipped out. Musk, time to drop the really big bomb. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason why they have not made it public. Have a nice day, Donald Trump. So you have effectively come out and said two things. One, I'm going to stop the Dragon capsule. So your astronauts are going to be stuck at the space station. There's that. Bannon is like, you should investigate Elon Musk for being a drug addict, and you should evict him from the country.
Well, now Steve Bannon, Steve Bannon fell out of favor with Trump in the first administration. I think it was over the Mercer family who helped Trump get elected. He fell out with, that's my recollection of it. So now he and Trump are like that for this week. And it's all very interesting. I wish I frankly knew more, because I'm sure there's more behind this than what we can see. These tariffs are Musk has pointed out, and he is correct, that tariffs are going to destroy the economy.
He's absolutely correct.
It's self-interest on his part, but that's absolutely true. Everything costs more. People who voted for Trump, the soybean farmers have lost the market. China just said, okay, we'll go to Brazil and get our soybeans. We don't need beef from the US. We can get beef from Australia. So there are entire industries that have been severely impacted by these tariffs. We're all paying more. We're paying more for everything. So this effort to stop China, to hurt China, it's ridiculous. It cannot be done. It can't be done. I was listening to the tail end of your conversation with Carl. It's too late. It's too late. It can't happen now. That China and the U.S. are integrated, and rather than accept that fact, they, this very childish white American supremacy is what takes hold, and we have this madness that isn't helping anybody. Nobody in the U.S. It's like the market's up, it's down. We're going to have 50% tariffs. Actually, no, we're going to pause for 90 days. Actually, yes, we are going to have. It's insane, but I caution people not to focus too much on personality. I mean, that's easy to fall back on when the personality is somebody like Trump. It's hard to, ignore him. But I think the fits and starts are an indication that we've been talking about can't figure out how to hurt China. And the
Agreed.
issue is you can't. But they are not. The idea that the U.S. has to have hegemony, the U.S. has to have primacy, that's their term that they love, all over the world is something they cannot give up. And because they can't give that up, we have lots of people in this country being hurt. I read recently about some businesses that just said, well, in order to avoid the tariffs, we'll just go to China. I mean, talk about backfiring. But
ontological shock. It's going to be an ontological shock when this collapses, and it will collapse. There's no way. There are so many contradictions that are built into the way this works and operates. I don't know how it keeps going. At some point, it's one thing when we were going up against the Soviet Union and there was a rivalry, and the U.S. it's almost like because you're in a war, you have to do things better. You're in competition. Soviet Union collapses. Okay, we no longer have to do that. And so, no, we don't need a welfare program. We don't need healthcare in this country.
Right.
We can totally have private interests control everything, even rare earths where we have to get it from another country to use for our military that is now being used against. Like, this stuff is lunatic stuff. This stuff is like a religion. It's not rational actors. It's a capitalistic religion that they seem to not see the canaries in the coal mine, losing to Russia, losing to Yemen. And yes, I'm calling it a loss. The U.S. couldn't impose its will on Yemen. I mean, they call them band of rebels.
So, it is kind of a religion. They can't see the world any other way without them being in charge. And that leads to this irrationality. That leads to these decisions that can only harm them and others and the rest of us. So we're seeing I suppose it was, and I'm glad you pointed out what happened after the fall of the Soviet Union. The little bit of safety net began to be chipped away. Having that opposing force was something that the people of this country needed. So if they wanted to make sure you couldn't point to the Soviet Union and say, well, why does communism take care of its people or something like that? So the safety net was maintained. And then when it was gone, it's like, we don't have to prove anything to you.
Nope.
And it's been downhill ever since.
And they haven't reorganized with China. Meaning it wasn't like they changed and said, okay, we need to go back to something to show that, hey, we do have better workers. We do have more freedoms. We do have this stuff. Europe is starting to look like the Soviet Union. I mean, we don't want Russians to come into the country. We don't want people with certain political ideas to come into the country. The U.S. or even the censorship stuff, it is getting very draconian in the way that
it's fun. I'm glad you mentioned that about Europe. Look at what they're doing with Israel. They do, especially Germany, which learned nothing about its fascist past. They learned was to be afraid of Jewish people.
Always on the wrong side of history.
Yep, and all they can do is say yes to Israel, and so they're ardent supporters. So now they say you can't speak Arabic at a demonstration in Germany. You can't become a citizen of Germany unless you're supportive of Israel. Other countries too. In the UK, they're using their terrorism laws to censor. So they have this vague law about supporting other groups. So journalists like Richard Medhurst, they've been shut down. So they arrest him and claim, well, we're going to bring this to court. And they keep putting it off. They've criminalized journalism. And that's in the UK. So we see these things throughout the West, this schizophrenic behavior, because capitalism is in decline. And they cannot think of another way. So we have these maniacs, Macron and Starmer. We have to fight Russia. No, why? No, you don't. Leave it alone.
Trump humiliated them in the office. Like, even mayors. It was like, D-Day wasn't a good day for you. Basically saying, you got eaten alive once before by the Russians. Why are you continuously doing this? Last thing before I let you go.
I hate it when Trump says something that actually makes sense.
It makes sense and it's funny. Yeah,
absolutely. It does. And today is June 6th. It's D-Day. And I always want to say this about D-Day. 1944, the Soviets had been fighting the Germans for 3 years at that point. The U.S. came in at the end when it was clear the Soviets had done most of the heavy lifting in defeating Germany. I always point that out.
As I pointed out to my audience earlier before you came on, 80% of the Germans, the Nazis that were killed on the Eastern Front.
That's right.
80%. Just astonishing. Margaret Kimberley, she is senior columnist and editor for Black Agenda Report. That is a fantastic outlet. Definitely check it out. She's also author of Presidential, Black America. You have another book?
I was supposed to keep my book handy so people can.
There we are. Presidential, Black America and the Presidents. There is that. Definitely check her out. Check that book out. You can also find them on Freedom Ride blog. You can follow on Twitter at Freedom Ride blog.
Yes.
Margaret, thank you for this.
Thank you so much.
All right. Be safe.
Good to see you. Bye-bye.